I hope you're doing well and that the assignments are going well so far. We're almost at the end, 2 weeks left, and you're done for this year. What we're going to look at today is we're going to look at BRC in terms of what it is, what you can see on there, and how RAMs work, radio audience measurement. And from there, we're going to look at developing relationships along with your brand. Okay, so important stuff overall as a whole that we're looking at. When you think about ratings, it's easy to see how many people viewed your posts, right? How many impressions you've had, because it shows it to you. It's more difficult when it comes to TV and when it comes to radio. So we have companies that do this for us, okay, that do these surveys for us. And to start with, in South Africa, we have RAMs and we have TAMs. So RAMs equals radio audio measurement, which is a survey that is conducted to determine the listening habits of people over a 7-day period. So these RAM surveys in South Africa is managed by the Broadcast Research Council and conducted by Ipsos. Your book might say something else because at the time that Next Level Radio, which we're looking at today, came out, this has not changed yet, okay? It used to be TNS, who is still a specialist research company that collects survey data through field technicians, which then analyzes and publishes this results for all media practitioners to use. So I'm going to show you what the old ones look like, and then I'm going to talk to you about the new ones that Ipsos does. So they used to use a sample size of about 30,000 households in South Africa. So the RAM survey had 2 components at this point. It still has 2 components now. But it had a placement interview, so a one-on-one interview, and then a radio diary where you would sit and fill in this diary. So the placement interview is your qualitative data, so face-to-face interview that the field technician has with the main respondent of that household before giving them a radio diary to complete over several weeks. The placement interview is used to collect data on the household, like the demographics and their listening habits, etc. So interestingly enough, they see a household or a family, per se, as people who eat together around a table. So if you are, doesn't matter how many people there are in your house, if you all sit and share meals together, then you are seen as one household. So this radio diary used to be a physical diary, okay? It's always been like that up until COVID. So what you would have to have done is provide the following information for measurement. So what radio stations did you listen to over a 7-day period? What times of day, for how long? So we measure them in 15-minute increments. What days of the week people listen to the radio, where and how you listen to the radio, what the repertoire of the radio station is for a person. For example, how many stations do you listen to in total over that week? What's your favorite radio station? Okay, so this is kind of, this is the image that is also in your book, in your textbook. So if they broke it down into the listening habits in terms of certain topics, certain types of radio. So weather, phone-ins, advice, music, traffic, celebs, gossip news, soapies, religious, current affairs, sport, news, competitions, financial markets. So at this point, news and advice sessions. Oh, sorry, I'm lying. This is music. News and music was the highest listened to segments in essence. The RAM diary was a physical paper diary, okay? That means that the research respondents had to fill this thing in manually, giving all the details, which will then be collected by TNS at that point, technicians, who establish the demographic data of the respondents and continuously maintain the sample so that it's always up to date. So they released these stats 4 times a year based on 6 months worth of data. So 6 months, they'll listen to 6 months, and then they'll release one. So obviously it's always going to overlap. So then there'll be 6 months, and then there'll be a second one, 6 months, third one. Here you can see kind of what it used to look like. So they would release it in August, November, Feb, and May. So in August, they would release Jan to June. In November, April to September. In Feb, July to December. And in May, October to March. So as you can see, it was always overlapping. So the data from these radio audience measurements allows a radio station to understand whether the audience is growing or shrinking, both between the different diaries, okay, from one to the next, measured year on year. They can then analyze what changes there were made to programming during the survey periods to understand how the audience is reacting to these different changes. This helps you as a program manager and a station manager to look at your future strategy and to see what is working and what is not working. Okay. The RAM numbers also help carve out certain advantages that one station might have over their competitors. So knowledge about these advantages is used by these station sales teams to highlight the advertising opportunity. So I go to you and I go, oh, look what we've done. Look how great our stats are. It's important to note, though, that RAM diaries are based on samples. So it shouldn't be taken too literally. Like, it's a sample base overall. It's not actual factual figures, okay? RAM surveys use a sample, which is then generalized to the whole population. So the RAM surveys don't interview the whole South African population, but they interview a percentage of households and then project the results according to the demographic formulas and research methodology onto the entire population of the country. Okay, so we're going to look at the latest RAM release in a second. I just first want to tell you about what happened from COVID. Okay, I'm just going to close this door. This is the way it's been going, and everything was all good and well, and then COVID hit us. What do you think happened in terms of research during COVID? Could field researchers still go out?
I don't think there was enough research done, and because of COVID, field researchers couldn't go out because there was restrictions in people moving around.
So we sat with a massive problem. We knew that technically our radio listenership habits will have gone up, but we didn't have the stats. We couldn't get the stats. Why? Because we were in a lockdown. No one was allowed out, no one-on-one contact. So we couldn't conduct field research at all. So there's a period that we don't have actual stats for, but we do see the stats around the world. People that did things digitally different to us. So you could see how much radio listenership did increase during those periods, okay, during those time frames. So what happened was, from our side, there was a media release brought out explaining what's happening in terms of COVID. So this thing reads, due to the impact of the international COVID pandemic, many industries have been negatively affected, and South Africa is no different, blah, 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 blah. So as the pandemic hit and level 5 lockdown ensured that there was no doubt that radio stations in South Africa would see fluctuations in audience data. We knew we were going to see it. A huge disruptor being the changes to people's daily routines and habits. Consumers were no longer commuting to and from work. Working hours were altered by homeschooling, family life, restrictions of movement, social interactions, and the like. So these shifts in routines and habits have led to a massive change in media consumption, mainly increases in listening and viewing habits. So another implication is that radio research currency was negatively impacted, as the makeup of the current underlying research methodology involves face-to-face interaction, namely interviewing respondents for RAMs, radio audience measurements, we were unable to provide data in Q2, 3, and 4 of 2020. So we could get data for Jan to March into 2020, but as of March 2020, up until December 2020, we had nothing, right? So that's quite a big gap. Then they say lockdown has changed consumer psyche and behavior considerably, which naturally includes how we consume media. These changes did not find its onset during lockdown ever, but these restrictions have added to its own layer of complexity. So then we had to look at this whole thing and see what we're going to do. So the only RAMS data that was available to the industry is Q1 2020 data, and the world has gone through immense changes since then. So to supplement this data, 2 interim sets of radio data was released end of March and end of May 2021. Okay, so a whole year later. Survey will then take place through a combination of face-to-face and online interviews, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so then they continue just talking about it. While these 2 radio data sets are exactly the same, that interim data, the lockdown regulations have highlighted a clear need for the listenership currency to be future-proofed. So face-to-face methods and manual 7-day diaries will soon be a thing of the past. So it was a thing about looking forward and what we could do now, okay? So now I want to go to the BRC's website. Interesting, before I do that, if you look at how the radio listenership was during COVID, you know, normally prime time breakfast is quite high and then it kind of goes like this, and then drive is high again and then it goes like this. It went like this. Breakfast was lower, and during the course of the day, it went up to a certain point before it went down, because people got up later. They weren't commuting to work, so they didn't start listening to things as early as they did. But radio was a massive part of people's daily lives because of this traumatic thing that was ongoing, okay? So it was a big part of the day-to-day, even though it wasn't from breakfast per se. So this is the BRC's website, Broadcasting Research Council of South Africa, blah, 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 blah. The first thing I want to show you, okay, so you should be seeing this document now. So this is when BRC and Ipsos merged, because it's the same way that anything else works in the government. You have to tender for it, and Ipsos won that tender. So from now on, well, for the next 4 years still at least, Ipsos is busy with our RAMS surveys. So in addition to the changing media landscape and consumer habits, the international pandemic and our own lockdown regulations accelerated the clear need for radio listenership currency to be future ready, like they said earlier. The past RAMS study was solely based on face-to-face and manual, okay? So everything needed to be done in person. Data was released every quarter, and this is still the same. So not only is it imperative that we provide a currency that is resilient in the face of any external factors, but it's also vital that we track both linear and non-linear listening. So actual traditional media listening versus digital and DAB, etc. Okay. Okay, so the BRC's latest research partner, Ipsos, will introduce a multi-methodological approach integrating passive measurement and live telephonic interviews. So the interviews are still there, they're just live, or rather over the telephone. That will keep up with the pace of technology and how people listen to radio. So the broadcasters are looking for reliable media currency and for deeper insights on how listening habits are changing. The new methodology that we are currently using will be structured in 2 parts. Firstly, they do 3,000 CATI, computer-aided telephonic interviews per month. That's 36,000 calls per year, providing audience measurement in 15-minute segments, along with audience tracking on radio events and roadshows. The program will cover 280 stations in the country. Secondly, a media cell passive listening panel will measure linear broadcast, so traditional media, and digital consumption of 4,000 panelists weekly with minute-by-minute tracking of activities. This media cell thing was the first in sub-Saharan Africa. So whilst its use of audio matching and online metering to track audiences and their journeys is a future-ready approach. All of this will provide broadcasters, media agencies, and advertisers the robust and representative data they require. Great. So this is what they said. They were looking at releasing the first set at the end of Q2 of 2021. I don't think it was then that they submitted it, but you can literally see everything on this BRC website, okay? So you can see it goes to archive if you want to look for the older stats, but here are the Amplify reports from September to 2021 to August 2022, and then August, November, Jan 2022 to December. So this is like your whole year report. Feb 2022 to Jan 2023, the year report. But I'm going to show you the latest one because this is the one that I use, that we all use in the industry currently. This thing, how does it work? You measure this thing in thousands. So the overall amount of people that listen to radio in this country per day is 42,571,000. What is that? 80+% of 86, I think, percent of South Africans listen to radio. And then they give you a breakdown of firstly commercial and PBS. Then they break down into community in the various sectors, or rather regions. So we get programs where that has all these things in it so that we can see exactly what the estimate is of the per 7-day listenership of a specific station. So let's say, let's look here. It's got 5 FM at 942 versus the previous stats of 908, which means they went up. 947 here is on 1,066,000 listeners. They've gone down a bit. 947, YFM 906 gone down from 900, etc., etc. Okay, so here you can see all the radio stations. You'll see the community radio station listenership much smaller in terms of amounts, with the biggest one by far being Josie here. So there was a point where Josie's listenership figure sat over 600,000, by the way. Anyway, so on this one, it's 413, but still the largest by far in South Africa. Okay, like you can see, closest here is Izwi-Lomzansi in Durban, or in KwaZulu-Natal, rather. So Zibonele in Cape Town and Voice of the Cape are the two highest ones here. Okay, so if we look at where Ukhozi is on this thing, 7.689 million. Okay, largest radio station in South Africa by far. Mhlobo, 3.5 million behind them, but second biggest still. Metro, biggest commercial with 4.6, and then it should be Gagazi with 1.4 being second, yes. Okay, so that's the breakdown of what it looks like in terms of the listenership reports. But they also do a presentation that they invite people to, where you can go and watch this thing. Ugh, I don't want to watch that video. I want this thing, yes. So like you can see, it's a live thing with people who present from different sectors. So what they're doing here is they look at expectations, context, and empathy, and they tell you where the data sources come from, so all the different places. They tell you what the world is looking at. 81% of South Africans say 2022 was a bad year for them. Okay, so yeah, that's not so great. We know that the world is changing with hyperinflation, unemployment, access to education, e-commerce and delivery, climate change and sustainability, supply chain issues, artificial intelligence, and we're sitting at a faster pace than ever before. So this just kind of shows you what's been happening and what's coming in and where we're standing. Looking at the worries of the world, the long-term trend sees inflation rise to the top of the list. So here you have inflation, poverty and social inequality, crime and violence, financial, political corruption, unemployment, obviously Corona back in the day. So inflation is the highest here. So it was like this until now. Poverty is this black line there. It's kind of always been the same. So the others are kind of where it's been, but the biggest worry rather is inflation. So while South Africa's greatest concern remains unemployment and its fallout. So which three of the following topics do you find the most worrying in your country? Unemployment, crime, financial or political corruption, poverty, social inequality, inflation. Unemployment, 68% of South Africans. Crime and violence, 60% of South Africans. Corruption, 58% of South Africans. Okay, so we can see where our mindsets are at. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of the stuff with you, but you can go and find it all online. It's actually really interesting. It'll just take a long time for me to run through all of this with you. But this is what Ipsos is kind of giving us. And then they give you a breakdown for what it means for brands, media, marketers, advertisers, organizations. Yeah, so all the stuff there. And then they did a release where they do what we call a deep dive. Okay, so it's more in depth than the previous data I showed you, because here you'll see now they give us more details. Okay, so population periods of this radio listenership: highest in South Africa, smallest in North Cape. And you can see the metro, the urban, and the rural percentages. Population profile. Probably more females than males, but we know that in South Africa. What's interesting for me is this section, because our average age in South Africa is 27. Okay, we're a very young country. So 27 will fall in there. But you can see that the highest listenership is 35 and upwards. Okay, the problem is reaching these. How do we reach these ages? Okay. So SEMs are falling away, but in terms of SEM, highest is 1 to 4. Most companies, no, I can't say that, but there's a lot of companies who try to reach SEM 1 to 4, but majority of them will focus on 5 to 10. Okay, so here you can see monthly income base, 82.2%. Has a lower than 12,000 Rand monthly household income. 12.6% earns between 12 and 40,000 monthly household income, and only 5.2% is above 40,000 monthly household income. Okay, and then here you see the position. This is very interesting. This is the media usage per 7 day. Okay, to give you an idea with all the different media formats. So we have radio, social media or social messaging, social media, internet, free-to-air TV channels, satellite or subscription TV, online video streaming like YouTube, online newspapers or online news sites, music streaming services like Spotify, TV streaming like Showmax or Netflix, print newspapers, listen to a podcast, online electronic magazine, print, none of these, okay? Radio is as high as social messaging. Okay, let's say, for instance, WhatsApp. Radio and WhatsApp is on the same. Then it's social media, 67. Then it's the internet, 60%, and then it starts going down. So it's really interesting when you see. So radio has gone down from 76 to 75. Social messaging has gone up from 74 to 75. Social media has gone up with 1. Internet's gone up with 1. TV has gone down with 2. Subscription has stayed the same. YouTube has gone up with 1. Stayed the same. Spotify has gone up with 2. Showmax, Netflix gone up with 1. Print newspaper gone down with 1. Listen to a podcast gone up with 1. Stayed the same, stayed the same. So here you can see what's happening in the rest of Africa. Well, in a couple of them. So Tanzania, Zambia, Kenya, Uganda, and Ghana. TV in Tanzania, there. Ghana, 90%. Radio, high in Uganda, high in Ghana. Internet, very high in Ghana, very low in the rest. Newspapers, low. Okay, so and then this thing continues. Here you can see with listening to radio versus music streaming versus podcasts, okay, and the amounts. So youngins, 15 to 24. We are looking at the purple one, Q1 2023. Okay, you can see as it gets older, it goes up, except for 50 plus. Don't know what's going on here. Streaming, it's gone up a lot. Well, yeah, it's gone up since Q3 of 2022. And you can see how much less it becomes as the ages get older again. Podcasts, 27.8% from 24.2, 26.8% for 25 to 34, 35 to 49, 18.9%. Okay, and here you can see just via male versus female. Here you can see via races. What is this? Via different income brackets. Okay, so these things are really interesting, and we follow this stuff quite closely, obviously, because it's incredibly important for us. So the other thing I want to show you, okay, as much as this is for radio, this is for TV. So let's take a look at TV. So this is SABC 1. Ooh, this is only SABC 1. Interesting. SABC 1, highest viewership, Uzalo. Okay. Then Generations, then Skim Sam, then the news in Zulu, then the Xhosa news. These are repeats, and then it goes down and down and down. Okay. So you can get an idea of, this is prime time though, specifically, obviously, but the quarterly hour listenership figures. Okay, so here you see Nielsen is the one that gives us all these details yeah, we can get absolutely anything of the data on Nielsen. But here you can see from 2020 to 2023 for the total reach. You can see ETV, SABC 1, 2, 3, OpenView, and then DSTV on here. So that's the total. ETV, yeah. SABC 1 is green. SABC 2 is yellow. SABC 3 is light blue. OpenView has actually gone up. And DSTV has kind of always remained the same. So what's interesting for me is just to see where we started with some of these lines and where we're currently sitting with some of these lines, knowing that it's going to fall even more. So this, so ETV is 50.74%, SABC 1, SABC 2, SABC 3. Okay, so OpenView has gone up a little bit, but that's the only one that's gone up. Overall TV viewership, it's gone down to 64.27, whereas radio is at about 86%. So there's quite a bit of a difference between TV and radio currently within this market. Okay, I'm not going to go into any more of that because I think that gives you a wonderful overview just of the kind of stats that we have and that you can also go and find on the BRC's website for free. The main thing from this is we used to work with Telmar and now we've moved over to Ipsos and we're doing it via telephone or digitally. Okay, so we no longer do anything in person, no longer do paper diaries. So the following couple of slides was an overview that I attended online with some very interesting stats about the industry. We did this at the end of last year, which is why it shows 2019 to 2021. Okay, so things, for instance, like where do you listen to radio after COVID? So after we got out of COVID, people that still listen to radio every single day. So this is all, by the way, middle class and upper middle class media consumption. So this isn't lower class media consumption. So radio listening offers hybrid and home. Okay, you can see where they listen. Radio is seen like the whiskey of media currently. So here it's the breakdown of age groups. Okay, so under 25 has actually gone up from this in 2019 to 2021. It's gone up since then for this age group. Then you can see the rest there. People that listen once or twice a week, people that don't listen to radio at all. Audio on demand, okay? Few times a week, majority of us. Well, audio on demand, more podcasts. So a few times a week, once or twice a month, once a few times a year, never. Never still though the highest, but never has gone down to, in 2022, to 33% of people never listening to a podcast. And then here you can see how often they listen to a podcast based on age groups, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, seldom, never. How often do you listen to a podcast? Obviously high. So we're looking at how you can target younger listeners. How is it that we gain you as an audio, well, you on the class right now as a listener. So podcast is one of the ways that it looks like we're able to reach you. So then it's which of the following news media outlets do you trust? This for me is really interesting. So if you think in your head, which media outlets do you find trustworthy? What do you trust? If we look at it, so 2021, 10% said none of the above. 2021, 10% said a YouTube channel, 11% Instagram, Facebook, 11%, email or newsletters, 13%, Twitter, 20%, websites, 24%, newspapers, 40%, radio, 48%, TV, 53%, okay, which is quite an interesting one for me. Yeah, so then if we compare or if we include 2022, so from 2021, none of the above has gone up to 16%. We don't trust anything. Instagram has gone up with 1% to 12, newspaper, email newsletters up to 15, Facebook up to 15, YouTube channels up to 15, Twitter up to 22%, websites 24, newspapers stayed at 40, radio 48%, TV 50%. So TV and radio still the highest trusted mediums, okay? Even though you can see like our trust level has gone down. Streaming subscriptions. We all renewed our streaming subscriptions. So which of these digital/streaming entertainment services do you use from 2020 to 2022? Don't use any. I use Google TV, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Apple Music, Spotify, DSTV Now, Showmax, and Netflix. So you can see where the people are going. Social landscape is shifting very fast, actually. So look at the age groups again. Under 25s, white, 25 to 34 is this orange, Then, I don't know, light gray, 35 to 50. I hate that I fall into this group now because it sounds so old. Anyway, 50 to 64, and then 65 plus. So look at this. So this is 2021 versus 2022. 86% of your age group, if you're under 25, was using Instagram regularly. It's gone down from 86 to 69. Twitter was on 40, went up to 46. TikTok was on 36, went up to 47. Second group, Instagram was on 75, is now on 63. If we look at Twitter, it was on 47, it's now on 40 there. TikTok was on 26, it's now on 38 here. But interestingly enough, as much as this, we can see how it's shifting. So Facebook still shows us the highest reach, okay? There has been one exception recently where a campaign on TikTok did better. But on the whole, 3/4 of the campaigns we do, we still get the highest engagement and interaction via Facebook. And there could be multiple reasons for that, taking into account age, stations used, etc. So another very interesting thing, young people are significantly more likely to be aware of outdoor messaging. It could be because you're not driving, for one. I don't know, it could just be that things make sense or that it catches your eye more easily than us. So here you can see again the age group from under 25 to 65 plus. Digital sign at a petrol station, a billboard on a building, 19%. Oh, here's an exception, or older people can see it more. And then the billboard on the roadside, 29% young and see it. Okay, so younger people are a lot more likely to trust digital media, but even they are still more likely to trust the old dinosaur to tell the truth. So here we can see your trust levels on all the different sites, blah, blah, blah. But here are newspapers, radio, and TV. So newspapers, whether it be digital or actual, 47% trust. Radio, 44% trust. TV, 55% trust. So you still trust digital media more than you trust the likes of the social media platforms, which I think is a good thing. Okay, there's hope. Sorry, that's just my dog. So when we do radio media planning, we take everything I've just shown you into account, okay? We have to sit and really think about how we plan. There's an art and a science to media planning. The science is in the figures I just showed you. So in doing research, and the art is in understanding the audience, and understanding who you're trying to target and what their interests are, etc. Okay, so you need to know where, when, and how to execute paid radio advertising elements on relevant radio stations. So media plan, in essence, is a document put together by a client or a client's specialist media agency, which happens in the case of any big brands. And then it's assumed that advertising is the solution to the client's marketing challenge. That's my challenge. That's what I need to solve. So it's necessary to buy media space to reach the right target or the right target market for the client's marketing challenge. So most clients use media agencies to do their radio media planning. And an agency is a firm that creates promotional ideas, they plan and they implement advertising campaigns. They also provide other types of services to assist the client in entering and succeeding in a particular market. So what is it that we need? A media planner in an agency will typically need the following: a target market for the brand. So I need to know which age group I'm talking to, what SEM I'm talking to, what's the geographical location, any sociological factors I need to account for, etc. How long this thing will be, what material are we running, how long is the material, what is my budget, very important. Reach and frequency objectives. So how high is your reach, how many people do you want to reach? Is reach the most important thing, or is engagement and impact important also? and the environment. So a radio media planner will use their knowledge and experience and the scientific data available to them to put together a radio media plan for a client. This plan helps the client to make the best use of their advertising budget, creating the most efficient radio ads and recommending the best radio station brand fits. Okay, so it's really important. And as much as I would love to do it just on the fly, we have to keep the reach and the numbers and things into consideration, because advertising means I still need to reach certain people. So I have to make sure I get through to them. So this is an example of a basic plan for a client's brand campaign. So it's got your media channels, the principal, the division, the launch weighting, subsequent weighting per week after the launch, parameters, time and overlap. Okay, and here we have radio, we have TV, and we have out of home. So like digital billboards. But yeah, digital billboards also fall above the line. So radio, TV, above the line, digital billboards. So they wanted a high frequency and just a medium frequency in TV. So you get different divisions as well. You get retail that sells the product, and then brand that advertises the actual brand of that thing, okay, your brand perception. And then we can also split it within regions. So we might want digital billboards only in specific regions to advertise this thing. Like for instance, with Miss Soweto, for radio, we are using Metro, and we're also using influencers. Okay, we're using LKG, but out of home, we're only putting in Soweto, for instance. So launch weighting, they want 8 ads during the first week and 5 from there onwards. They want block booking to own the time bands. So they want set in stone bookings within these time bands, so that they kind of own the channel. In morning and afternoon drive, 1 ad per half an hour, and an ad leading into news or news headlines, blah, blah, blah. 30% of the TV should be in prime time, 30% just the second highest. Okay, that blah, blah. And here you can just see what it is that they want. Okay, so this is the kind of thing we come up with. So we say, okay, cool, we think this is how this specific campaign can work for you best if we make use of these specific media channels and we use it as such. So frequency is the average number of times that a listener will hear that advert. And it takes the average person about 3 listening occasions to really hear a message and to ensure that they understand it or are attentive enough to take action, which means if I want you to hear something 3 times over 1 week period, I technically need to schedule it 21 times within that week. Okay, so here you can see here it's more in detail. Here it gives me the target market. It says 18 to 25, urban dwelling, male and female, interests and passions, are mainstream, sport, travel, music, consumer insight and motivation. They're digital savvy, fashion forward, not yet upwardly mobile, but determined to succeed at any price. Okay, so yeah. So you can see they're using Metro and Ukozi, and then KFM and 947, different prints, different TV channels, out of home, digital and social media, and certain activities and events under consumption. And the approach in terms of frequency and reach is what they're looking for in radio. For print, they're looking for education and premium credibility. For TV, it's all about the positioning and reach. Out of home is for awareness. Digital is for engagement and conversion, so to make you a client. Engagement and on-trend alignment is what we want from the activities. Okay. So here, previously we could see the stations chosen, the time channel selected, the approach and the types of shows the ads will be playing in, and the types of radio advertising that we will be utilizing. Okay, so that's what we see here. So there are some pros and cons to advertising on radio. I'm not going to read them all now, but Advantages: production of advertising material is relatively cheap, especially compared to what you may call it, TV. The disadvantage is there's no imagery. You have to listen if you're only doing it on radio, hence why we do audiovisual media. Targeting is very geographically specific, but there are limited spots available in prime time slots where the highest listenerships are. We can have a high frequency, and radio is a live medium happening in real time, but because of the fact that it's a real-time message, you might have missed it, okay? You can't go back to an advert or consider it for longer, and it can become wallpaper because you might be listening with one ear, while doing something else, you only pick up half of the message. But presenters can enable a one-on-one listening experience for you, and listeners are habitual in their listening patterns, so you can be confident of reaching people regularly. And targeting them can be time specific, and radio is mobile, and it's language and interest relevant. Okay. But there's also a brand image risk. You never know what the presenter might do next. For instance, a radio presenter reads your advert on air and then discusses a topic afterwards, which may conflict with your business and brand, which might result in listeners thinking that your business supports the radio presenter's views and ideas. So it's there's two sides to the coin here. Okay. But again, no literacy is required, and there's a lot of interactivity and engagement on radio. So if we look at how we book radio media, so the radio, I'm going to show you a radio media plan tomorrow morning in our class, or tomorrow afternoon, whatever, when our class is tomorrow. New radio plan gets approved by the client. Then a radio plan is sent to radio stations. The radio stations book spots and campaign elements. Radio stations revert to radio media practitioners with any unavailable slots and propose alternatives, if there are any. Radio media practitioners confirms the alternatives for bookings and updates the media plan. The radio stations issue contracts confirming the elements that have been booked and the costs and the discounts and the AV, etc. Media practitioners issue flighting codes to radio stations to identify each spot. Monthly, the media practitioner bills the client, and the radio stations bill the radio media practitioner, aka the agency, according to the contract. The media practitioner then compiles a post-campaign analysis to confirm correct flighting of spots as per contract. And lastly, if you made any mistakes as a radio station, then we're going to talk about compensation where necessary. So compensation is something that we'll chat about tomorrow when I show you that media plan. And that's where we are. Hold on, stopping for today. So tomorrow we're going to look at compensation. Just a quick look at the commission and sales and programming structure. Then we'll start with the last part that we're doing, which is the RIB guide to writing a great radio copy. So how do you actually do copywriting? How is copywriting actually being done? Okay, any questions for me after my hour monologue?
No questions, ma'am.
Okay, you understand everything that we've gone through?
Yes, I do.
Cool. Okay, in that case, you must enjoy the rest of your day, and I shall chat to you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, ma'am.